and welcome back to another Monday night with Five Guys on Live. Everybody out there, thank you guys so much for joining us. We are really honored to have with us a very special guest, the one and the only Jared. Jared, welcome to Five Guys on Live, sitting in and filling in for Vince, who is out. I want to give a huge congratulations to our co-host and brother Vince on the launch of It's a Cheesecake, which is now in Lenox Mall. So if you have wondered and you thought to yourself, I really want to try one of Vince's amazing homemade cheesecakes, you can now purchase a slice. They're like 32 flavors of that Bootylicious bubblegum, but cheesecake flavor. And you can get it from And Cheese, located in Lenox Mall. Jared, welcome to Five Guys on Live. We're happy to have you. I'm
glad to be here. I've heard so much about it. I've tuned in a couple of times. It's cool to be in the seat.
Well, I'm glad that you. So look. So one thing that we did before, we have kind of a sitting or standing, kind of like an Anna Navarro fill-in with a friend named Zach Thomas, who is a diversity inclusion leader. But usually when we have a new person, we each, how are you doing, Mama Vera? We ask that person a question. So Jared, I'm gonna give you the chance to ask one question. Each of the four guys here will have to answer that question. What is your question for the Five Guys on Live?
Wow. What's filling your cup this week?
And I'll go first. The guys have, I don't have a problem. This is cinnamon and cardamom tea with one. So it's two cinnamon cardamom teas and then one lemon zinger tea. And so I always take it as a natural herbal tea. It kind of helps me calm down and decompress because everyone here knows that I can get really excited. I think that's the right word for it when talking about these issues.
Coconut rum, pineapple, orange juice, some other stuff. Bless the Lord.
I don't have nothing. I don't have right now, so.
Yeah, and I'm also I'm with CJ tonight. I'm very thirsty tonight, so I don't have anything to drink in front of me. I'm just gonna be thirsty. I'm gonna be parched.
I'm not doing this for 2 years.
Okay, so
glad somebody else said it because I'm not going. I'm not touching it. I'm not.
Let's do it. Hey, Mama Mona, that's Jared's mom, y'all.
Oh, she's here. Okay.
Yes.
Mama Mona joined in. Mama Mona and Mama Vera. So glad that you guys are here. And I want to definitely give Mama Vera a huge thank you. And to everyone out there who's watching and praying for my mom, I appreciate it. I hope that you continue to do so. We know that she is going to get better day by day. And something that kind of facilitates getting better for some people is the cell phone. CJ. When you come back to us, we begin really, it's a heavy week. It's always a heavy week. So we're going to start off with a lighter topic, which is cell phone addiction. CJ, this is a topic that you brought to today's discussion. Tell us about it.
Uh-oh, CJ, are you muted? Are you on
I
mute?
am muted. I'm sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. And I would go get a bottle of water, so I can't be sipping on something. Great minds think alike, there is, right? So there's no clinical diagnosis on people being addicted to their cell phones. However, they are looking into it and to seeing, do you potentially have a problem with being addicted to your cell phone? Do you feel like you're constantly in your phone all the time? Of course, phones are a necessity nowadays. Everything is accessible through social media, apps, shopping, gaming, videos. You can pretty much do everything on your phone. So they gave 12 different ways. If you feel like you have a problem with cell phones and you feel like you're going down that road to where you could be addicted to cell phones, there's 12 different ways to kind of improve that and kind of wing yourself out of it if you feel like you have a problem. So I brought this up to everyone because I do feel like, especially with today and a lot of the younger generation and just people in general, that we tend to get caught up in our phones, whether you're in a social gathering, whether you're out to eat. And they talk about this here as well in the article. Like, do you have, do's and don'ts when you're with your friends? Like, is it a requirement that you can't have your phone when you go out to dinner? Things like that. Should you keep your phone in the bed with you when you go to sleep? Because they said it can distract you in the middle of the night and you can get up on, social media and things like that. I just wanted everyone's opinions and views on that and see what you guys think about cell phones. Do you think that they are addicted and can it become an issue, down the road?
Anybody can take this. I think that I read the article, CJ, and I was really pleased to see some of the techniques and tools. As our cell phones become indispensable from being able to motivate us to being able to organize us, it's really a matter of productivity. And for someone like me, I'm a workaholic and I turn to work to actually handle and manage stress. And so, I definitely think that it can be a problem, but at the same time, I think that it really has become just a natural extension of, our personhood and who we are as people. But I did enjoy some of those techniques and tools that you kind of talked about in that article. And I thought to myself, I'm going to try some of these, like, again, delayed response and not responding and kind of having sacred non-phone time just to give my brain, a break. I think it's better. It's good for your mental health. Gentlemen?
I think it actually is a problem. I think it actually affects the way we communicate with each other. And I think a lot of people lack communication skills because of cell phones nowadays. I feel like people feel the need to text conversations as opposed to having a face-to-face conversation or on the phone conversation. And text messages can be very impersonal. I also feel like people, there's so much into their phones that I feel like that's why a lot of people have mental issues. People have suicidal thoughts, the bullying from online. It's a plethora of different things that take place on the phone that people rely on, and people need validation from these apps that they, get from their phones. But I do think the biggest thing is lack of communication.
Yeah, I think like with all things, it's about how you use it. Have y'all ever seen those memes on Facebook that are like, if you have one chance to call somebody and if they don't answer, you get $1 million, who are you going to call? Have y'all seen that before? So I get tagged in that all the time because people know, don't call my phone. That's one thing that I'm just, I'm really, I don't know. It's sometimes it's hard to get me on my phone, but I find that being present in the moment with people is more impactful for me. And so I also challenge them by saying, when I'm with you, do you see me on my phone? And depending on what the situation may be, like if it's my friends and we're just sitting around at the house, I might be on my phone. We might be sharing things on the phone right then and there. But what having these cell phones has conditioned other people to think is that they have 24/7 access to you. And so they think that, when I text you, you need to text back. And I mean right away, like Nene said. Or they think that if they call you and you don't answer, it's going to be an issue. But I actually appreciate having conversations via text because what it does is it gives me the opportunity to respond when I get ready to. And that's something that I value in terms of making sure that I give a thoughtful response, because sometimes when you shoot straight from the hip, especially with some of those harder conversations, you might say something that you will regret. So I find taking some time to think about it and responding when I get a chance to say what I really want to say. And even my mama, yes, y'all, my mom threatens on a daily to erase her name off of my birth certificate because sometimes it takes me a minute to call her. But we talk every day, so
Well, you know what, Mama Vera, Darius and I have been communicating, and so I want to say, number one, I appreciate you for answering my calls when I call, but as you know, it's rare that I will do so, and I think everybody, all of you guys know, if I call you, it's like, wait, what? Because I'm like Darius, I don't use the phone. But one thing that I will be doing moving forward is that anytime my mama calls, no matter what I'm doing, I am going to answer the phone. That is one of the covenants I have made with the Lord in this time of intense prayer and focus. So, Darius, I urge you to do the exact same thing. We have one mama in this world, and we have to honor and give them all we got.
Let me tell you, Zach, I have to be in a sitting position when I answer my mom's phone call. I can't be walking through the mall. I can't be driving. I got to be sitting down because I know the conversation is going to be at least an hour. So, and we get our time in. We do.
And I also appreciate Darius too, because I know Darius is not a phone person. Darius will answer my FaceTime call or call you back because he knows I like to FaceTime.
Don't go that far. Don't call me on FaceTime. Don't call me on FaceTime.
For Zach and CJ, at least that makes two of y'all because he doesn't answer the phone for me. As a matter of fact, it's very helpful to see Mama Vera in the comments because we have bonded several days over the idea that Darius is not answering his phone. So that's a good one. Let
me tell you that it's not all the time he does it, but I will say if he'll FaceTime me back eventually, or he'll like, CJ, what? He'll text me or whatever. So it's not all the time he does.
Is this an ambush?
Darius, I'll give you this one. So it's an ambush. Now I don't call you very rarely at all, but every time I've called Darius, he's actually answered. Every time I've called Darius. Now I think I've called him maybe 3 or 4 times. He's answered all 3 or 4 times. So I don't call him too often, but he has answered. Now those text messages, but he answers that phone call.
You know what I be doing.
So Candace made a valid point. Candace said that she finds it hard to have serious conversations via text. And for those who like to text, do you feel like it's easier? Because I know Darius, you said earlier, like sometimes you don't know what you want to say, so you want to sit back and kind of think, and then kind of like send your response. But like, don't you feel like some conversations are meant to be in person? Like, especially like.
Definitely.
I personally want to see how you're receiving when I'm taking and vice versa. I want to have that personal interaction so we can look each other in the face, but hey, especially if it's something serious. I don't feel like we need to be having a conversation over text about that because sometimes people can misinterpret text, make their own analogy of what they think you're saying, or they can feel how you're saying it when in reality you're not really saying or meaning it that way when you say it.
And CJ, when you say that, I think that you were asking for people who like to text. I'm one who doesn't necessarily like to do that. I would rather talk on the phone because I want the real response time. When you've crafted a response or like it's taking you a day or so, we can come up with the most fabulous thing to say. I want to hear your true thoughts in that very moment, just as if we were sitting beside each other and I were to ask you. You wouldn't say like, I'll give you that answer tomorrow.
I agree with you. I'm a phone person. I like to talk on the phone. I like to talk in person. That's me. I'm not a texter. I really don't.
Well, the thing that I am is someone who is forced to move us forward, right? Okay. And so this can be quite contentious at times. It can definitely moving us forward can be quite a challenge. And so I want to do my Whoopi Goldberg best to say that there are a lot of phone calls that are made every single week. And last week, Howard University made this call to these 2 individuals, and they represent some of the Black excellence that we are going to talk about on tonight. Jarek, tell us about the topic that you picked.
Of course. So we got Nikole Hannah-Jones and Ta-Nehisi Coates who will be joining the faculty at Howard University. They're leading the charge that we've seen in the media over the last year or so, with several noteworthy people actually joining faculties at HBCUs. Nikole Hannah-Jones, for example, hers is pretty unique in that she was vying for tenure at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, wanted them to recruit her, and that was her alma mater. She's the mother of the 1619 Project, which examines critical race theory and other aspects of African American culture. Several of the key stakeholders on the board actually had an issue with this when this was raised into question. And at the point where they actually wanted to offer her the tenure, she said, no, I'm good. I'm actually going to go to Howard University. But there is this Washington Post article, and I want to lean into what Michael Lomax actually says, the president and executive officer of the United Negro College Fund. He says that he thinks that this time is a renaissance for Black colleges. He thinks that people are going to see what visible appointments that Howard is going to have. And then once again, HBCUs being nationally recognized for a platform of creativity, for insight, for voice into the Black community. So in the of so many equity talks, I want to figure out what you all think. How equitable across the spectrum of HBCUs is the appointment of noteworthy people to those faculties?
Okay, so I'll bite. I guess for me, and this may not be the popular conversation. I hate to say this. I hate that we actually have to have this conversation, right? I hate the fact that we have to have this conversation about things that we technically should have been doing at our HBCUs to begin with. I don't understand why we actually went and tried to put ourselves in a position to become this grandiose thing in these PWIs where we actually could have taken our talents to these Black colleges in the first place. And so unfortunately, now when you see that these people don't value you, and now the institutions that could have used you all these years are now calling for you. Though it's a great situation, I'm glad they're about to get that excellence. I'm glad they're about to have them. I'm a little concerned that we continuously look for validation in some of these institutions where we're not placing validation in our own institutions. And so though I do hear this Renaissance concept, we've been renaissancing for years. We've had Black scholars come in our institutions for the longest. And so now we're just getting back to that place where scholars are going back home and doing what we believe to do. And that's educating the best and the brightest to be able to compete on the levels, because the same people that's teaching them at universities of North Carolinas and Temples and all these other places can be also teaching them at the Howards, and can be teaching them at the Morehouses, and teaching them at the Hamptons and all these other institutions to help prepare them in those same demographics. And so I get it, but at the same time, I hate that we have to have these conversations when we should have been doing this in the first place.
And DeAndre, I think we touched on this a little bit maybe a few weeks ago when we talked about just athletes and what colleges they choose to attend. I think that the same can be said for professors. Sometimes it might be more lucrative for them to work at a larger, more well-known PWI as opposed to HBCU. And then also it might be easier for them to get the notoriety that they're looking for, or the attention that they want their research to receive. So it also goes back to that idea as well. And so we have to figure out how we can promote the work that our professors are also doing, and also making sure that they're able to make the money that they're worth across the board, whether they're working at an HBCU, a PWI, or otherwise. I know that at one point I was considering that route as well, but a lot of college professors, even in the AUC, have told me the money looking funny, so you might want to think about that. And so I can only imagine that that is a concern that other people have as well, as they seek to take care of their families and things of the like. So sometimes it's not as easy as saying, I want to be down. I want to be down with my people, but can I afford to be down with my people? So I just wonder how much those, impact those decisions.
And that makes me double click what you're saying, Darius, because the reason why she was able to be appointed, her along with Ta-Nehisi Coates, is because of a $20 million anonymous donation to Howard University, along with her chair, or her her chairship being sponsored by the Knight Foundation.
Nice.
Without that, she wouldn't be able to do it, which leads me to the equity piece, right? Howard can do this. Morehouse was able to bring in Mark Lamont Hill, but where's the equity?
I don't say that name on this show.
I think he would be amazing.
But yeah, that was a big deal for us.
It was a big deal, and I think that this notoriety is not necessarily afforded to other institutions who have not done this groundbreaking financial fundraising work. And so my question is, what should we do to increase the number of noteworthy people going to other HBCUs?
What it comes down to is those universities need to do the work. So oftentimes we look on the outside and we hone in and we look at the fact and put the blame on greater society. And we say things like, the government needs to give more money to HBCUs. That's a piece of it and part of it. But the thing is, we have now huge amounts of money being given to HBCUs, and that goes to, and I give credit. I will give credit to twice impeached one-term president, now Florida retiree Donald J. Trump, because he made, even though other presidents gave large amounts of money to HBCUs, they've always been funded with federal funds, he actually made it a talking point in the press. So I give him credit not for giving money to HBCUs, but for making it a talking point in the press. And as a result, the Biden administration had to give even more money than what his administration did in an attempt to probably pander and keep the HBCU support. The thing about it, though, is this: that will only go so far. The real work comes from those institutions. They have to hire top quality talent, recruit and retain that talent, and pay them what they're worth, instead of trying to use that money to pay presidential salaries and other administrative costs. The money needs to go into the big names. In addition to that, they need to, like you said, have huge fundraising efforts to bring these academics into position. When we look at what we can do from a larger standpoint in society, to me, it wouldn't necessarily be giving money to these HBCUs, but it's actually pushing to have academics like Nikole Hannah-Jones being featured and sponsored on programs like Fox Soul. So let me explain that further. When you go to Fox Soul, which supposedly promotes and is a network for Black people, you have Claudia Jordan as the featured talent.
colorists.
You're right. You have, when you turn on television and you watch television shows like The Real, they're bringing in the little girl from 3LW. Like, it needs to be academics at the table who are there giving us news and promoting and supporting the real perspective that's educated, that's informed, and that's academic. That's what we need to see. And if we did that, they could make their money from the media and from using their academics, as opposed to depending on the university to fully fund their lifestyle.
And Zach and Jared, go ahead.
I was going to say, but to that point, they had Amanda Seales on The Real for just a hot second. She was just too hot for them. They weren't ready to have those deep conversations like that. And a lot of times, we have to do a better job of making sure that is of value to our community. So if I'm not popping it, and dropping it like it's hot, then I still need to be valuable to my community, and my voice still needs to be heard.
So quickly, before we move on really quickly, as we talk about the Howard, and that's a great step that Howard is actually making, but it was brought to my attention today that Howard just made a big mistake that they did. They actually voted unanimously from their board to take away the alumni vote, the faculty vote, and the student vote. And so now they're no longer on the board of directors for the school. And so now you have taken away the voice and the power of the institution to which you're serving. So the other part of that is you have these institutions that are trying to be like these other institutions, but you don't know, but we're not the same as PWIs. We are the institution. The backbone of the institutions are the faculty. So you have to have the buy-in for the faculty. If the alumni don't feel bought in, they're not going to give money. And then the students, if they don't feel valued in the system, it's not. So they actually just removed the whole issue. So it's almost like our institutions are taking 2 steps forward and then making stupid ass mistakes and taking 2 steps backwards. And so we have to. It's a bad situation overall. And we have to do a better job quit trying to keeping up with the Joneses and just be who we are.
For that shadiggity, I have now added a brand new word to my lexicon. I will be saying shadiggity. That's a wonderful replacement word, because that is some bullshittiggity.
You ain't been saying shadiggity?
I've never heard it. So, but enough of this shadiggity. It's time to move on to our next topic. And really, this topic is all about, President Biden. Now, let me say this, gentlemen. I know that there isn't a whole lot that our president can do to make the progressives in America very happy. And I'm getting angrier and angrier every single day with every single tweet and every single response. I was a fan of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I try really hard. I am a progressive in my mind, but I am a liberal in my belief of how these things have to happen over time, slowly in some cases. Well, President Biden absolutely made a very strong effort to really work with and connect to the progressives in the Democratic Party and progressives in America in general with Friday's executive order that was aimed at anti-competition practices. Now, again, this is going to affect more than a dozen federal agencies, and it's really honing in on restoring net neutrality, re-examining problematic mergers that happened that really cut down on competition, that really raised prices for you and I, the regular average American citizen. It also talks about taking rid of some excessive corporate surveillance, prevention of unfair termination fees from internet service providers like Verizon, AT&T, and for many of us, it has a huge impact on travel and the airline industry. This executive order is going to require companies to provide clear upfront disclosures about add-on fees, making it a lot easier for customers to get refund and get money back in their pockets. President Biden has provided and done quite a number of executive orders, but this is one of the ones that I'm actually most proud of because it has a direct impact on the American citizen that's going to benefit them right here, right now, and today. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this executive order? And is it time for us to for people like me to take a good long look at whether or not we can still support progressives who are still arguing that President Biden hadn't done enough for them in America?
I think that, competition is a hallmark of capitalism, and you can't have a capitalistic government without having competition. And so it is difficult for smaller businesses to compete with these larger businesses as we continue to see them merge with other business after other business after other business. And even in some instances, they're using the data from these smaller businesses to create similar products that they already have on the market. And so I think this executive order takes a good effort at ending some of those things. And then also, I think I read that about half of companies require their employees to sign non-compete agreements, which is also an issue because it limits the competition within the market for finding other jobs as well. And so I know that if you work for my company, when you leave, let's say you leave Google, and if we have a non-compete, you can't go over to, let's say, Microsoft, then I know I can pay you what I want to pay you because it's going to take you a while to find another company that will pay you as much as I was able to pay you. And so I think that this executive order is going to do a good job of leveling the playing field and making sure that we hold these businesses accountable for doing what it takes in order to keep and attract good talent and doing what it takes in order to keep and attract dedicated consumers as well.
Candy says that a start would be getting rid of capitalism. But Candy, Google hashtag SOS Cuba. Now, I'm not saying that is in any way an endorsement of capitalism. I'm just saying it's a whole lot more complicated than what I think a number of progressives and people on Twitter want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Now, Zach, you had mentioned something about how this new bill passed to help with traveling too as well, or something with travel.
Correct. See, right now, airlines and really everyone in multiple industries can tack on fees that you won't know about until it's time to pay. Or they slide them in. There's a way they can kind of word things so where you are getting charged for things that you don't even use or need, right? Now, I'm not saying this is a fee, but let's just pretend like there's a peanut and Delta biscuit fee. Right? Like they charge you for those peanuts and those little bitty biscuits that everyone like, those Biscoff cookies. Now, I don't know if that's real or not, but let's say that is an example. Now, those types of fees have to be disclosed, and you have the right to say, no, I don't want to pay for that. I don't eat Biscoff cookies, and I have a peanut allergy, and I don't want to pay that 10 cents. Give me back my money.
Now, let me ask you this now. With a lot of companies, like when you think of cell phone companies and things like that, aren't these things disclosed or just in fine print is for us to actually read it? If I'm not mistaken. Is that not so?
You are supposed to read it, CJ, but sometimes they don't even have to disclose it.
Okay.
And that's what this executive order is really honing down on.
Well, no, I do like the fact that they are going to be disclosing it, but to my knowledge, I thought a lot of that stuff is already disclosed. It's just in the small fine print, but people never read it because it's so lengthy and it's so small. People would just be like, okay, whatever, and they sign up for it.
So real quick, Zach. So with that, it's saying that in essence, it doesn't fully necessarily regulate the fact that they can't do. It's just simply saying they have to be transparent in doing it.
Correct. It's like in some cases, it's actually a cannot do. It just depends. It's actually a sweeping order that involves a number of different industries and impacts a number of different industries, and so it will be very specific to the order. But the bottom line is it's meant to really have an impact on monopolies and systems that create monopolies or that are trying to build bigger monopolies. And it's going to attempt to limit because competition, according to this executive order, is good for the American economy.
I think what has to happen, though, particularly for the progressive movement, is because we're seeing time and time again, every time we turn around, there's something in essence that the progressives, those who are progressives, are not necessarily liking per se. The question then becomes, we've had this conversation even from the Democratic side, is if you have a problem with everything, if you're having an issue with everything, you're having a problem, exactly what is the alternative or what is actually the measure you're putting forth that actually speaks to the very thing? Because it feels like they're speaking against everything that they don't necessarily, that something that they're trying to do is like, okay, he does this, but he didn't take it like all the way to this extreme. So I don't like it, but he did. And so it's like, he's going to do the thing that you want him to do, but because he's not taking it to the extreme. So it's like at the end of the day, what exact agenda do progressives actually have? I'm not saying that everything they're saying is wrong, because there are areas that I do believe that we need to be more proactive and progressive in. But I think just like I've had with the Democratic Party, who I still don't feel has an actual platform and agenda, what becomes, where are we actually going? Like what exactly? President Biden has an agenda, but the party does not. and they don't always align with each other. So the question I have for progressives is, okay, exactly what is it? How much more can he do? And at this point, should we actually be paying attention to them? And are they becoming the whiners again? Are we scared of them as we go into the 2022 election?
I think it's a good place for the Democratic Party to be actually afraid of the progressives, be afraid of their viewpoint, because it keeps their foot on the necks to actually getting something done. Second, double click to this particular piece is I question the sustainability of this executive order, because the executive order can be undone with the next executive order of the next administration. It's going to be a lot of trouble actually passing things through Congress. And then a few weeks ago, the federal court, so the Supreme Court, actually threw out the idea to even hear a case of Facebook becoming too large. So I wonder how far it's going to go within the next months or years.
So, Jared, it is great that you're here and that you are kind of giving a little bit of voice to those progressive thoughts, because that's exactly what progressives believe. Progressives in America believe that it's their job to have their foot on the neck of Democratic leaders like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to push them forward. But in actuality, progressives have not achieved a great deal in America. And they're not going to achieve a great deal in America except divisiveness if they continue the same practices and policies. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her whole entire crew have passed very few bills and very little legislation. That's what makes a difference. That's what becomes real. Executive orders are exactly like you said, fleeting and momentary. They are not going to last into the next administration, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. That new president will have the opportunity to undo the whole entire thing. So it's not lasting, but it's a temporary start to helping repair the damage caused to the American economy by the years when Florida retiree Donald Trump was president. But here's the thing. I don't believe that the progressive approach of trying to continuously attack the liberal wing of the party and even the moderate and centrist wing of the party is the right approach. It's very divided. You have Republicans sitting here standing in unity behind the big lie. They are standing as a unified force when we all know what happened, and they know what happened, but they are pretending like they don't, because that is party unity. I am thankful that Democrats don't do that, but I'm embarrassed that they're continuously fighting internally, publicly, over and over and over for Twitter retweets and clout that they're getting from young people.
And that has to become the argument that you even have even on the local level, because as we're getting closer and closer to these city elections and things of that nature, when you're talking about, who are these, progressive leaders we're putting forth and things of that nature, you have to remember on that city council, you have a certain amount of votes that you need to get bills passed. And you can have progressive mindsets, you can have progressive movements, but you also have to understand how to play the game, if you will. You have to also understand to be able to package your position and package what it is that you want to say so that you're also doing what's best for the people and not for your agenda. And so I think what we're dealing with right now is we have progressives that still dealing with their agenda and not necessarily what the people want. And we have to be very careful about, again, we're going to put this progressive and we're going to put that in there. But do they have the wherewithal to be able to work with those who they're going in there with so they can get the job done that's best for the people and not for my personal interest?
I think this conversation is analogous to what the Tea Party would have had during the Bush administration or during the Obama administration. And then we see that we get such a right-wing president in the twice impeached Donald Trump. And what he did over 4 years was effective in terms of getting a following. The Tea Party continuously put their foot on the necks of the Republican Party until they got what they wanted, and it just blew up in the nation's eye because they put their support behind the wrong leader. But arguably, had they put their support behind John McCain, someone who is going to actually bring in both parties, same way that Joe Biden is trying to do right now, it probably would have worked out a little bit differently for them. Now, when we talk about this progressive party, I think they should continue going. I mean, Joe Biden, hey, I don't know how much time he has left, but get in the ear of Kamala Harris, and then others who are going to actually lead the party into the next century.
And I do agree with you. I just think, though, that the progressive parties have shown some progress. And right now, they're not showing any progress. They're not pushing forth any initiative. They're not actually giving it. They're fighting more than they're actually being unified. They're fighting more than they're actually providing. So, yeah, they're putting the their needs on the necks and everything else. But what are you also doing outside of that? And so
Bernie Sanders passed 3 bills in 40 years of service. You know what I'm saying? Like that's an embarrassing hallmark. And the fact that young lawmakers and people in this country want to run and rally behind him is, because he says some great sound bites, it's just not practical, and that's just not how politics work. And so, everything about and here's the thing, I would be a lot more willing to embrace progressive thought. Well, that's not true. I have progressive thought. I would be a lot more willing to embrace the progressive approach if they were winning elections. They won mayorship in Buffalo, New York. New York City is the most progressive city in the United States of America that is a large urban area. And they couldn't even elect a progressive mayor. They elected a moderate liberal. That tells you that America is not willing to buy into the progressive message. And if the Democratic Party is smart, they're going to change course and find a way to tone down that message and internally grapple with how to embed the things from that platform that work into the bigger platform, and the things that don't work, cull it out and move forward.
So, Zach, does that make us more right wing now?
No, it makes us more centered around what is going to work for the majority of the American people. While my thoughts are progressive, right? Like I have a lot of progressive thoughts. I have a lot of things that I want to see happen in regards to disassembling the structures that make America America, so that we can truly be the America of the true idealized nation that we are. However, I realize that many of these things will not probably come to pass in my lifetime, and it takes small progressive steps forward, not these huge giant leaps that some people like AOC want to make. The Green New Deal has some great elements to it. Take some of those great elements and let's make those things happen, which is exactly what President Biden is trying to do through his infrastructure bill. But the overall wholesale package is not going to fly. You're wasting energy and you're wasting time because you can't do things without consensus in America.
Yeah, it's just so hard when I think about that, because I think about Bernie Sanders being an anomaly, right? He was the only independent in Congress or in the Senate for so long, and probably still to this day, probably the only independent who's there.
You have Angus King of Maine, who was an independent as well.
But he's also been on the right side of history in so many cases. Like even if we talk about social issues, gay marriage was up for so many years, and he was always side of that. And the idea that now it's passed so many years later, we could have said years ago, America wasn't ready. Well, maybe we just need the person to push us across that center line further left. Maybe it's the bold voice. But we, again, elected a centrist. And so this is where we are.
But see, Jared, the problem we run into that, and we talk about Bernie Sanders, we talk about him being, on the side. The problem that we have with Bernie Sanders is the fact that, one of the things that Bernie Sanders did in 2016 when they were 2016 when they were running when he ran it,
and then he ran it
and what occurred was the fact that you felt that you were entitled to certain rights that in essence you did not fully I wouldn't say work for, but you didn't necessarily acknowledge, meaning that you wanted the Democratic Party to change the rules for you. And the problem is that's more of a progressive movement saying, I'm going to come in and change everything. When in fact, in essence, the party had a standard. And unfortunately, we're now feeling some of the effects of some of those changes that came forth, not in a good way. And so, again, that's one of the things that I think Zach is also trying to say is we're talking about a progressive movement. We're not necessarily saying that we don't want progressive ideology, and we don't want progressive thoughts. But what the progressive movement has to understand is it's progress, meaning that you have to do things in a timely manner in the process. It's not going to be jump overnight. It's not going to be we're going to do that. We have this time now, because what's going to happen is you have the position for every 2. You may have the position for every 2 years, or maybe even 4 years, depending upon when we have elections. And the tides change. Here we are now in getting ready to happen into midterm, and unfortunately, we're about 6 seats away from turning the tide. And so, unfortunately, that's because of the fact that we've tried to wheel and deal and try to be passive, and we also try to use these progressive mindsets. And so we have to be very careful, and that's why we're saying that it's going to be very tough, and we have to be very careful. And that's why we have to start putting we have to go a different direction at this, because if we don't, we're going to be our own worst enemies. Unfortunately, our progressive party right now is our thorn in our side, just like the Trump Republicans are the Republicans' thorn right now. And so we have to find a way. How do we come together so that we're still not battling inside, so that we can attack the other side and beat them in 2022? If we don't get that under wraps, then we're going to be hell. We're going to be have a hell on our hands come November in 2022.
I just hope that we can go for the gold now. I just don't want to be old and gray when this country decides that it wants to care about the sustainability of Earth and training police departments to reallocate their funds to not kill people who look like me. And if that's too progressive for America, then by all means, let's keep our foots on the necks.
And so, those are, Jared, you're a young man. I'm just maybe 2 or 3 years older. And in those 2 or 3 years, you gain some wisdom and you gain some perspective. And I'll say this. These messages are costing people their careers in politics. And so we can sit here and say we want to redistribute police funding, but at the same time, you have a surge in crime that is real. And you have a whole entire media that wants to portray every little incident to the 20th degree to attack those politicians who came out against it. Then you have the politicians themselves not even being willing to stand behind the original message and completely change course. You have to think about the bigger picture, and about every single decision that you make to stand for something will have a direct consequence, regardless of what it is. And so we can look at, let's make our earth and planet more sustainable, but in doing so, what are we sacrificing in the process? Are we losing jobs? Are we cutting jobs at a rapid rate? Or if we took our time, could we really look at how to transition jobs that are going to be lost to new professions with training and development? Again, it makes a whole lot of sense to do some of the things in the Green New Deal, but when you do it, you're going to cost jobs. And when you cost jobs, you hurt the economy. But if you took your time and you made a plan and a clear roadmap, it's going to take time, but it's going to result in the economy improving and being better. When we rushed out and said, let's defund the police, or let's abolish the police, or when we started that rhetoric, we immediately set into action a whole course of events that have undermined that entire movement. Where if we would have said, let's take a deep look at law enforcement and talk about how to make America safer, but at the same time redistribute funds so that our actual citizens are protected from the law enforcement and the policing, the culture of policing, we probably would have huge wide-scale support in America. And things are even lining up that would have benefited us in that. Sadly, the killing of that young man in Arkansas has brought people who were all about the police to the side of those who say we need to have some kind of safeguards in law enforcement. But again, when we rush out here trying to be so quick and so progressive, we lose sight of the impact or the damage that these messages can cause. But when we talk about damaging messages and we talk about being progressive, we got some good comments here.
Yeah.
Around the verbiage. Thank you for yes. Thank you, Val, for giving me a yes. And then time to train work. It's right. Just paradigm shifts. When you talk about training workers and paradigm shifts, it's time to talk about sports in the NBA. And we're talking, DeAndre, about Becky Hammond of the Spurs. Of the Spurs, could have been a part of the Trailblazers. Looking at making sports in America more progressive by having the first female head coach. Tell us about what didn't happen.
So first and foremost, so if you don't know anything about Becky Hammond is a well-qualified woman in the sports industry. She has been with the Spurs since 2014. When Popovich actually got thrown out in the 2020, in December of 2020, Coach Popovich got thrown out of the game in the second period. And so she actually became the very first female head coach at that moment when he got thrown out. And he wasn't sure if he was actually going to come back for a 26th season. And so she possibly could have became the head coach there as well. But she has served under him for the last since 2014. And when she became the first head coach, he didn't really make a big hoopla about it because he said, at the end of the day, this is who she is. This is what should be. But Becky was actually up for a position. She actually made it all the way to the final round to the position with the Portland Trailblazers to potentially become their head coach. They decided to go with Chauncey Billups, who in his own right has had many issues in the public eye, including but not limited to when he actually was put forth in allegations in 1997 for gang rape and sexual assault. on a woman, and they kind of bypassed that. He said it settled out in court, but they went with him and they looked over this woman. And the reason why they said the reason why they went with him over her is because when they reached out to the Spurs associates to get a little more insight on her coaching philosophy and how she actually operates. For some reason, some people behind it, some sources say that she was, her day-to-day operations as a coach and how she kind of coached and there and across the league. Some of the people across the league said that it really wasn't up to par. We find that funny that you say that, but the Spurs kept her on for 7 years and she was highly respected. And she actually in 2015, right, the year after she actually came on to take the head coach of the summer league, she won the summer league title in 2015. She's done something that some coaches who are currently in the NBA, who are head coaches, have not done even on the NBA finals level. And so she's actually won a title. So here you have it, this woman who is heavily qualified, who is now being pushed to the side from someone who has literally found himself in many issues. And now she was pushed over because I guess she's a woman. The reason why I brought this up and the reason I'm curious about this is we keep talking about equity and fairness across the board. Do we feel that the NBA is still playing the James Brown song "It's a Man's World" and they're not allowed, and they don't believe that they are that women still are able to sustain the roles that they're able to do? And are we doing ourselves a disservice by showing that on the national platform?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, there are, gender inequities within the NBA. And I'll just cite some data that I was sent by my sister, who also works in sports management. This is by TIDES, the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sports. The NBA has an overall A+ rating for diversity initiatives. However, when you peel back the layers, they have a B+ for gender hiring practices in the league office, a C+ for management positions at the team level, and a D+ for team vice presidents, and an F for team presidents and CEOs. And so if you just look at the data that they already have, that while they're saying, all right, we're doing a great job with our diversity initiatives, sometimes women are not the most valuable part of that equation, because how can you have an A+ when you have an F rating for diversity and gender hires at the team president and CEO level? So we definitely have to take a closer look. Of course, I'm not a big sports fan, but for anyone who is, in sports, any woman that's in sports, any person of diverse origin who is in sports, they deserve a fair shot, just as the average white man does.
It seems like, Valerie, you're saying that that she would be seen as a qualified candidate by DeAndre because she is a female. It seems like that's what you're saying, Valerie. I don't know if that's true, but it seems like you're saying that.
And I think, to answer Valerie's question, they'll stop being the first of their gender when they're no longer the first of their gender. And so we won't have to say that she's the first when we have a second and a third. Mm-hmm. But the fact that we do have to continue to call the first Black president or the first female or the first this or the first that, that's indicative of the fact that for so long we haven't even had representation in that field. So we should be tired of having to say the first. But I don't think that the answer is stopping trying to make sure that people who are qualified in those fields get to have the opportunity to be the first. We just have to make sure that we're making that shift.
I think it's making the shift and then making them qualified enough or prepared enough to actually deal with the backlash, because they will be coaches of men's professional sports teams to which they've never played, right? They've never played on an all men's team. They don't know what those dynamics are necessarily like other than by word of mouth or if they've actually been on the ground. And it's just interesting to see the number of actual team owners or presidents that are women. Gail Benson of the New Orleans Pelicans, Jeannie Booth of the Los Angeles Lakers, Jillian Zucker of the Clippers, Sacramento Kings owner, Dallas Mavericks owner, Utah Jazz's owner. And I'm wondering what type of focus groups are actually there to bring women along, because it seems like at that level, at least 6 of the 30 teams have women who are in places of power. What are they doing for that trickle down effect? And then what are they doing to actually sustain them over time? That's my worry.
And I think my fear for that, though, with Jared, is the fact that unfortunately they don't do the same thing for men who actually go coach women's sports. And that becomes the issue, because you have men who go and coach women's sports, they've never played on an all women's team before. They don't understand the concept of an all women. They don't understand it, but yet they still get those jobs. They're still competitive, and they're getting those jobs over women. And so when does the conversation start having that we start going after just those who are the best qualified? And that's my fear. We have this standard, and it's not just in sports, it's everywhere we've seen. To be very frank and honest, I remember when I did, it's double-sided though, because when you think about the educational system, we have quite a few educators on this live, but unfortunately, many times as Black men, or people as men in general, we get the short end of the stick at times when it comes to the educational system. When I think about certain areas in education, and so it just we just have to be very clear about, instead of as Valerie did say, once we get to a place where we're more looking at the qualification of the person, not the gender of the person, but again, you at least got to let them in the door first so they can actually start competing. They can't compete with other men if you're not letting them in the door. So yeah, she may have to be the first. We may have to have a second, but you at least got to let them in the door first so they can actually compete. And then once you start seeing that there are more qualified people than just your circle, then we can actually start making change. But you got to at least let them in the door first.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, DeAndre. And I'm also thinking that we also need to change the qualifications that would make them hireable. We would have to change the qualifications, because if the qualifications that you have to have played men's basketball, then that's just not going to be a thing. Right? So I have
got to recognize my Bravo celebrity and my favorite housewife and one of my nieces, Candace, for joining the chat. I love seeing you last night. I'm so sad that you were sick and couldn't make it, but if you would have been there, we would not have had that absolutely monumentous read of the summer between Karen and Giselle. From a dry wop to a hot box. It was golden television.
Exactly. We had the chance to check out Candace's new single, Drive Back. Y'all,
yes, duh.
Work, Candace.
I listened to the single multiple times. Multiple times. So again, right, same thing, Valerie, same thing. And I also love seeing the kids. I'm so glad that they are on the show. Casey said that will the male players respect the female head coach? And I just want to say this, Dr. Washington, is that the answer is yeah. If they want to keep their jobs, they're going to respect that head coach. And it's just that simple. When you are paid at the level that these professional athletes are paid, there is absolutely no excuse for them to be unprofessional in how they respond to their boss. If I have to respect my boss with the little bitty pennies I make, then most certainly they must respect their boss with the big bucks that they make. And we're right. You got fans here. We love you dearly. But you know what, Candace? Let me say this. You know who may not have fans here, who may not have fans anywhere in the world?
She does. She does have fans.
Let's take a moment, Darius. Now let's take a moment. You got to give me this. This has now become, we talked about Wendy Williams last week, and I'm not trying to pile it up on Wendy Williams. I'm not trying to berate Wendy Williams on a continuous basis. That is not the focus of this program. But I cannot deny the fact that Wendy Williams has continuously crossed the line. Last week, she attacked Tabitha Brown. She got a little bit of clout and fame, or at least, PR, and when really she hadn't got a whole lot of PR. She came out last week, and this young man he was actually murdered, gunned down. His name is Matima Miller. He is a TikTok star. He has over 2.5 million followers on TikTok. The young man dances, he entertains. He was working really hard trying to make it out of circumstances that many young people in America are faced with every single day. No, he didn't have the money that Wendy Williams has. No, he didn't have the name recognition that Wendy Williams has, but he was trying to make his way using the God-given talents that he was born with. And he was murdered in Baltimore. And this is what Wendy Williams said. Wendy Williams said, I have no idea who this person is, and neither does anyone in the building. She said this on live television the day after he was killed and gunned down. He's a TikTok star, and he's got more followers than me, 2.5 million. She added, appearing unimpressed. You know what? This was an absolutely low blow, and I think heartbreaking. But gentlemen, I want to hear what you have to say about Wendy's most recent disrespectful and dastardly turn.
I'll say this for Darius, and for the rest of y'all can have Darius and CJ.
I think Candace just said it best. Like, try to love her, but she makes it hard. I love Wendy Williams. I'm a fan of Wendy Williams. However, this is another one. She was wrong for saying what she said. She shouldn't have said it. She wasn't going to say nothing nice about the situation. She shouldn't even brought it up in Hot Topics, to be honest with you. I can't say nothing else. Like, she was wrong for saying what she said. She showed no empathy, no nothing at all. I mean, this, young man who passed away, has a mother, a father, a family to answer to, and she just showed no empathy at all. Just pretty much made a joke about it, like saying, like, who is he? Like, he's a nobody, and he is somebody to someone. And we should have got Donkey of the Day for this one.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It was definitely cringe-worthy, to say the least. Everyone here knows that I am a Wendy Williams fan. I will not be standing beside her on this one. However, I will say this. Wendy Williams often gets stories from her team, and she will not know who the person is. And so she will always come on. I'm still believing she will apologize. She will always come on and say, clap if you have heard of this person or if you know this person. Because I think for her, it's just to see if she's still relevant or if she still knows what's going on in the culture at that time. She did compliment him for the amount of followers that she had. And she also said that her son told her Instagram followers don't matter anymore because that is, that's where the old people are. No one uses Instagram anymore. And so they pitched it to her, and it was definitely cringeworthy. I don't think that her intention was for it to come off that way. I think that she thought people might know who the guy is. She just didn't know who he was. So it was definitely inappropriate. I doubt that she will apologize, but I don't think that her intentions were to mock someone who had been murdered.
Darius, now
I think that she was trying to be relevant.
Yeah.
Like Candace said.
Darius, I'm a Wendy Williams fan just like you are, and I don't think I have to disagree with you the butt part. Yes, she does get things from her team or whatever, but the way she said it was very condescending. She said it very much like, do you know who he is? And then she laughed. I'm like, well, I don't know who he is. Like, if someone passed away, why would you even make a comment like that? Like, you knew. She knew, and she was trying to be funny about it. The way she said it came off very shady. It didn't come off as like she was trying to literally ask the crowd who he was. She did it in a very shady manner. I don't think there is no but about this. She was wrong for how she did it. She shouldn't have said it. When it was presented to her from her team in the morning, she should have just not even brought it up, and she was going to make a mockery out of it.
And Candace, you're saying that she has ADD. If you have ADD, you take some Adderall, not cocaine. I don't know if it's ADD or she's suffering from other maladies that are impacting her decisions, or if it's long-term drug abuse that has impacted her decisions. But no matter what, let me say this before DeAndre says anything. I know Dr. Pickett. Dr. Pickett, I'm not trying to make fun of people that are struggling with addiction. It's a serious issue. My prayers go out to addiction. We can give some money from the Broader Future Foundations to recognize addiction counseling.
How are you gonna give money for my foundation?
And I want you to tell me for tagging you made me feel real bad last week about Trick Daddy. I felt so bad about it because, again, autoimmune diseases are a huge part of my family makeup. So I apologize, and I apologize in advance for addiction and people who are on addiction. I love Whitney Houston. She had crack as whack, but Wendy Williams is on far more than simply ADD.
Zach, Wendy has got through her addiction. She's not on drugs no more.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Wendy might need to listen to a masterclass from you, Zach. So after you threw shade at people who actually do cocaine, maybe Whitney should have came back and actually prefaced or like did a disclaimer based on her statement about people who have passed away from gun violence and actually used the platform for good in the end.
That's my bitch.
It's happening right here. Five Guys on Live.
Oh, don't tell him that, Jared, because I told him that we do the same thing. Zach tried to bite my head off. So shall we proceed?
Please.
And I just want to go back and acknowledge Rhonda's comment. I am not defending Wendy's behavior. The first thing I said was I do not stand beside her on this.
Right, but then you said a but after that.
I said,
however,
you want to go back and listen to it. Go back and listen to it. Do you want to keep hashing it out? You want to go back and forth about it, CJ?
We can.
Okay, we can. Meet me at the lobby.
What you said was, you said yes, it was cringeworthy. Yes, you did, and
I do not stand by.
You said that. Then you said, however, her team does give her. There is no however with this.
No, the however is that she does that with everyone she does not know. She does do that, and that doesn't make it right. And this wake up that morning.
However,
she woke up that morning and said, "Oh, how can I make fun of someone who got murdered on my show?" She didn't do that.
Jerry, Wendy Williams built her whole entire career and her brand around mocking people. Now she's found a brand new audience that is innocent and unaware and unable to defend themselves. In the same way she became famous attacking people like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey and Puff Daddy and Pam from Total. Poor Pam from Total is absolutely abused, regressed, and repressed. Watch BT's The Encore. And I blame people like Wendy Williams with this woman's
had nothing to do with that. Wendy Williams had nothing to do with the way she's acting.
Wendy Williams has made poor Pam feel ashamed to go out and find love and enjoy the life that she was born to live.
You're
Total did that to Pam.
I think y'all give Wendy more credit than she's due.
Yeah. Zach,
but I say that to say, I say all of that to say that now she has a whole new group of people, the TikTokers, and she's able to attack famous TikTokers and probably face no recourse or no consequences for her actions. That's what she's doing. It's a pattern. First you came for Tabitha Brown. Now you came for this young man who's not even alive and can't even defend himself. We will see if she can do.
No, why didn't nobody sit up here and tell me that Tabitha Brown was an actress? Nobody told me that. I'm sitting up here thinking she's just social media famous and she on a whole show. Why didn't y'all say that last week? Rhonda?
You didn't know this?
No, I don't know.
You didn't know she was on The Shy?
I don't watch The Shy, but when I saw that, I was very proud to see that she is doing some other things as well. And her season is sold out in like 59 seconds, something like that.
Her seasoning sold out is immediately. Her magical sunshine seasoning did sell out. And Tabitha Brown has a brand new book that's going to be coming out. I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna, pre-order the book in August. I can't, I hate to order so soon because I'll want it right now. But there is, our viewers are eating you up, and that's all I gotta say. I just want you to take some time to think about your choices and what you've chosen to defend on Five Guys on Live.
Roll it back. Get the full picture, see the full statement. If you want to cherry pick which parts you want to use, I'm sure that y'all will hate me this week, but y'all gonna be back loving me.
We'll love you next week. And Candace, you're right. In the same way that they are censoring Black issues, I urge everyone to not only download your song, give it a stream, several streams, listen to it, but to also download the Fan Base app. I'm actually working on a new video that I'm gonna post. I will be home this week, provided that everything maintains and continues to be stable. I'll be going to Mississippi next week, so I hope to make some content that talks about how to use the Fan Base app. It's created by a Black man named Isaac Hayes III, the actual son of the one and the only Isaac Hayes, a gentleman that I've known for years, a great guy, a great entrepreneur. That is exactly what we want to see and what we want to do. And again, you're right, Valerie, support the Tabbage Patch. Hashtag Drive Back. Can't wait. Again, stream it, download it. Also download the Fan Base app. We'll be promoting it here. And while we're promoting it here, it's time to promote some Black excellence. We support Black history. 365 days a year. The one and the only is King Darius. Who is our Black history fact of the day?
All right, y'all. So today I want to highlight the Niagara movement. So in 1905, a group of, actually in this week of 1905, prominent Black intellectuals led by W.B. Du Bois met in Erie, Ontario, near Niagara Falls to form an organization calling for civil and political rights for African Americans. With its comparatively aggressive approach to combating racial discrimination and segregation, the Niagara movement served as a forerunner to the NAACP and the civil rights movement. Another fun fact is that W. Du Bois was the first Black person to attend Harvard University. And when he graduated, Jared, what did he say?
The honor, I assure you, was Harvard. So.
That's our Black History Month moment for today. Oh, he attended Fisk University for his undergrad degree.
So we thank everyone for joining us. It was a great time. Jared, thank you for joining us. We can't wait to have you back. Great to have you with us. It was a wonderful time. Thank you to everyone who joined in this week. We can't wait to see you next week for Five Guys on Live.
Zach, are we going to keep this party going?
We may keep the party going on Instagram, but let's talk about it shortly. If you guys see us live on Instagram, so are you guys going to Instagram? We're going to go live? I'm ready. We are now going. So here's what you can do. So look, see these right here, guys. See these different. This is who we are, right? You can find us on Instagram, and we're going to talk about some other issues and some more issues right there on IG Live for anyone who wants to join us in about 5 minutes. See you then.